You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, David here. I wasn't able to get an episode in due to a bunch of travel circumstances, and I was in New York, I was in Tennessee, I'm in the middle of writing a book, it's a whole thing. But instead, we're going to rerun episode 101 from A Life in Ruins, which Connor and I talked to Dr. Angela Perri. Dr. Angela Perri is, as you'll find out in this episode, like the goat of dog archaeology and genetics. If I had an advisor, and if she had a school where she could be an advisor, I would absolutely make her my advisor. She's the dog sensei, I guess, as it were. In this episode, she talks about working for Paleo West. I believe now she's working for Chronicle Heritage, so it's a minor detail in the episode. But the rest of the advice that she gives is probably some of the best advice I've heard for any aspiring archaeologist and grad students, but also it's just packed full of information of dogs, dog research, and what she's done all over the world studying dogs. So, all right, thank you.
Welcome to episode 101 of A Life in Ruins podcast, where we investigate the careers of those living a life in ruins. I am your host, Connor Johnen, and I am joined by my co-host, David Howe. Carlton is celebrating passing his comp thing? Something. He's out having a good time, so he will not be with us today. But we are lucky to have Dr. Angela Perri here, who's a visiting assistant professor of anthropology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. She's a senior archaeologist with Paleo West and a research associate with the Paleogenomics and Bioarchaeology Research Network at the University of Oxford. She received her undergraduate degree in the Pacific Northwest at Portland State University and her PhD at Durham University in the UK. Dr. Perri studies the relationship between humans and their environments, animal domestication, and the genetic and morphological origins of dogs. Her work has been published in many exceptional academic journals, as well as featured in the New York Times, National Geographic, and the BBC. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sorry, that was a mouthful.
Thanks for having me. I mean, some of that is hard to get through. I get it.
Yeah, so I think for the audience, I'll just say I met you in Rome, I think was the first time I think I officially met you. Right?
Whoa. I totally forgot about that. Yes, I think that is the first time we met. What a random place to meet.
Really? Right. Yeah. And like, not a lot of people spoke like English there. I didn't know them. No. So I was like, okay, I want to talk to Angela about my career. That's very terrifying. Also, she's the only other person here that kind of speaks English, so I should probably just talk to her. And
True.
Yeah, so we had that chat. But yeah.
I mean, that was a good conference also.
It was.
That was a really good conference.
One of the coolest things I've ever seen, like passing the mic around, arguing about like dog art in different languages.
A whole conference about dogs.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. I also just left to go tour stuff too, half the time. But
when in Rome, you know.
Oh, good.
Good one.
Think
Yes.
about that. I guess we can just get into it. So, like, were you like a dinosaur kid, like a science kid, or like did you like worms or something?
Yeah, so I'm an only child, and that meant that I had to entertain myself a lot. Luckily, from a pretty young age, my grandma had gotten me a National Geographic subscription. And so, you know, it was like my great joy every month. I would get my National Geographic. I would pull, like, it didn't matter what it was. Whatever big poster came in it would go immediately onto the wall. I mean, I read it cover to cover. And I was also deep into Girl Scouts. I mean, I was like on the Girl Scout Council. I was like lifelong Girl Scout. I was very into camping, hiking, outdoors, bugs, just nature, all of it. Also, my grandparents are farmers in Kansas. And so I would spend a lot of the year just like on a farm, just roaming around, finding, you know, ponds of tadpoles and like random cats giving birth in the barn. I mean, just like, you know, random stuff. And so I was just a kid who was into like weird things. And like, I didn't have any older brother or sister to tell me like, what are you doing? Like, so I just was free, you know, just going for it. And yeah, very into National Geographic, very into nature, outdoors, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you obviously, you guys, David and you know each other because you're both interested in dogs. Did you have a dog growing up? Is that where you kind of get this love for dogs, I guess?
Yeah, you know, when I was born, my parents had a dog already. So I've never known a life without a dog. Always had dogs. Always been like a dog person. Like I said, being an only child, like my dog was kind of like, my sibling. And so, yeah, I was always very into dogs. And yeah, then I guess I just found a way to make dogs a career. I got really lucky.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot, I would say we should probably do data on this, but like 75% of our guests were like, had National Geographic books or magazines and just like read them all the time.
Yeah.
Or watched the same shows and stuff. But yeah, that's awesome childhood, sounds like.
Yeah.
I think I've always had a dog too, and a cat. But
I don't even know. I mean, I can't understand a life without growing up without pets, especially a dog. It's just like, yeah, what happens? Like how do you entertain an only child, first of all, without a pet?
Yeah. I usually just talk to my dog instead of talking to myself.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know what that would be like with just being an only child and no dog.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to, I guess, Portland State. You were living up there too, right?
Yeah. So I have a very weird, non-traditional academic path that is, yeah, it bifurcates a lot. It splits, it stops, it goes. Like all people usually, I grew up in Las Vegas, which most people are like, oh, that's cool. That's great. Like, didn't you want to stay there? But like everyone, right? You never want to stay in the place that you're from and that you grew up. You like just want to get out and go do something. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I immediately went to Oregon State. And like everyone who read National Geographic growing up, right? I was convinced I was going to be a marine biologist because that's what you do, right? Of course, we're all going to be marine biologists and it's going to work at, SeaWorld and whales and dolphins. It's just like, I was going to live the life. So I went to Oregon State. I was enrolled as a biology undergrad and I was like, here we go. I got, a couple of years into my undergrad there and I just was like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, I'm not really loving it. I don't love school. Like my biology classes are okay. And I started being like, what am I going to do with an undergrad biology degree? What do you do with an undergrad biology? And I started spiraling. And then I was like, you know what? I just stopped. I stopped going to school. I moved to Portland and I was a bartender and working at, clothing stores and just for years, just that's what I was doing. Thought about going back to school and then was just like, no, I don't know what I would want to do. So I'll just do this. I'll just keep being a bartender working in Portland. And then, yeah, one day I decided, okay, I'm ready. I'm a strong believer in, I love the European system of like taking a year off and just kind of like traveling and like figuring out life. I wasn't the type of person who needed to go to university at like 18. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was super confused. I was taking all kinds of classes all over the place. So I ended up going back to school at Portland State much later. I mean, I think I restarted when I was 27 or 28, my undergrad at Portland State. So I took a good chunk of time off and went back.
What kind of inspired you to finally get back into academia? Was it?
Yeah, I think I'd had enough of being a server and a bartender in Portland, right? I liked school. I was good at school. I got straight A's, but it was hard for me to work towards a degree when I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I, like a lot of people, kept changing majors and like taking a couple of these classes, realizing I didn't like it, taking a couple of these classes, realizing I didn't like that. And I was just like taking endless classes, paying endless money for an undergrad degree when I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So when I was living in Portland, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back to school at Portland State. I'm going to start taking some, I'm going to go back to my roots of National Geographic, right? And I'm going to take some anthropology classes. I didn't really know what anthropology was or, what I would do. And I started out as a cultural anthropologist. I was convinced I was going to be a cultural anthropologist. I was doing my kind of undergrad dissertation on Romani Gypsy population in Portland. And I was working at a Romani Gypsy school and living with a family and doing kind of research with them. And then one day
awesome.
I took yeah, it was great. It was really interesting. But then one day I took Intro to Archaeology with Ken Ames, the kind of go to Pacific Northwest hunter-gatherer guy. And I never looked back. It was never the same after that. I just knew I was going to be an archaeologist.
That, it's prehistoric archaeology is what sucks people in. I don't know why, but I think everybody who intends to go into school to do Mayan or Roman stuff, then looks at stone tools and you hear about like ecology and you're like, oh, that's really cool. And you just stick with it.
It's so good. It's just it was so interesting. And I think when you have professors who are very good at what they do and are genuinely interested and genuinely like interested in passing that information along to their students, it's so addictive. And when you find professors that you like, you just take all of their classes and you're just like soak in their knowledge. And that's how I was with Ken and Virginia Butler, the zooarchaeologist at Portland State as well. I took all of her classes and she's the one who like made me love zooarchaeology and wanting to be a zooarchaeologist. So yeah, then I decided from then on I was an archaeologist and I took all archaeology classes and then I got my degree. Finally.
Awesome. Yeah.
Did you do any sort of field work or lab work as part of your degree there?
Yeah, so I did field school. I actually did a historic field school at Fort Vancouver there. So it's a historic kind of Hudson Bay Company fort. So that was interesting. I definitely knew I wasn't into historics after that. It was interesting. And then I was working in CRM. I was a field tech working in CRM and then working in the Zoarc lab there at Fort Vancouver, looking at like various animal burials and things like that there. So yeah, I did a little bit of lab work, a little bit of field work, stuff like that. But I knew pretty early on that I wanted to do work with dogs and dog domestication and hunting dogs specifically, which is kind of how I launched into what I did for my PhD.
Cool. Before we launch into that, though, I have to ask, is being a bartender hard or is it really fun or is it both?
Oh, man. I would say that it depends on where you work and it depends on the day. You know, I've been a bartender in Portland and I've been a bartender in Las Vegas and they're just two different worlds, right? I feel for anyone who works in a tourist location who has to deal with tourists every day. It's really hard to deal with. For you, it's another day at work. For them, it's like the greatest day of their life, right? They're out in Vegas at a club. And it's just like they're at a bachelor party or it's their birthday. And so for them, it's just like the most exciting day ever. And you're like, it's a Thursday for me. So, you know, and like, you're just like, how many cosmopolitans? I was a bartender in the days of cosmopolitans in Sex and the City. And it's like, how many cosmopolitans can I make today? Or, you know, how many like Red Bull vodkas can I serve to dudes on a bachelor party? So, you know,
right.
Has its ups and downs.
Okay. Yeah. I guess like, I didn't really think about that. If they're having like the time of their lives and you have to like kind of like match that energy level. But if you have like, you know, a doctor's appointment or you got no sleep that day, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And I worked lots of late nights. I worked when I was working on the strip in Vegas, my shift started at 10 p.m. and I got out at 8 a.m. So
Whoa.
That's a weird life.
Yeah.
That's a weird life.
Anthropological for sure.
Yeah, I feel like nothing good in Vegas happens after like 2:00.
Oh no. The weird things that you see, the weird stories that you have after that. Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, like not a straight, I didn't like graduate from high school, get my 4-year degree and then go into my PhD. It was a meandering path, you know?
Yeah. So on that path, you went to the UK at Durham University.
Yeah.
How did that come about and like why Europe?
How did that come about? So like I said, probably unlike a lot of people who start their PhD, I was laser focused on what I wanted to do. Like in those 2 years that I finished my undergrad at Portland State, I became like the model student. I was so focused, so dedicated. Like once I knew what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, I'm zeroing in, I'm getting straight A's. I'm like doing this thing. And it became very clear very early on, like I wanted to go into grad school. Now I'm a first generation college graduate. No one in my family has a college degree. There's no background in my life to like help me through the obstacle course that is grad school and how that happens and where you go and how you do application. The whole process was like a mystery to me. And so I started with like, who would I want to do work with? Who would I want to find does work that is similar to what I'm interested in, things like that. And at the time, I was so clear about what I wanted to do for a PhD that I was looking specifically for zooarchaeologists who had like a kind of worldwide approach, who had experience in various locations where I was interested in working. And that was very hard to find in the US. I had talked to Pam Crabtree at NYU, but she was very specific in kind of where she worked. And really, everyone pointed me to the same person. And this was someone in the UK, who became my PhD supervisor, Peter Raleigh-Conway. Yeah. So then, having never been to the UK ever in my life, I got on a plane to England, arrived in January in the middle of like the worst snowstorm they'd had in like a decade. And it was immediately like, what have I done? What have I done? Where am I living? I'm in a small village in England in a snowstorm. I'm from Las Vegas. This is a terrible idea.
Whoa. Yeah. And then you go to like charge your phone after a long day and it's a different plug and you're like, oh.
It's all different.
Yeah. That's wild. Cause like I'm from the East Coast, obviously, but then just went to Laramie, Wyoming for grad school. And that was just like the culture shock of just leaving, I think Knoxville at the time, to then there was just wild to me. But yeah, going to a whole other country and having to do all that and then do grad school must be kind of challenging.
Yeah. And a different system, So I was over in Europe for 12 years before I just recently moved back to the US. And it's just a completely different academic system. So, for example, undergrads in the UK, they do a 3-year undergrad that's laser focused on their major, right? And so you apply into your undergrad in the UK for a very specific program. So students apply to the Department of Archaeology, get accepted to the Department of Archaeology, and there's no changing your major. There's no like messing around and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, you're stuck. That's it. It's very hard to change that path once you're on it. And you only take archaeology classes for 3 years. So it's a very focused system. And in some ways, the PhD is very, very similar in that at the time I had colleagues who were doing, 6, 7, 8-year, 9-year PhD programs. That was the kind of norm, like not that long ago. It wasn't abnormal for people to do 8-year PhDs. And in the UK, it was a 3 or 4-year PhD program. So again, it was like this kind of laser focus on getting to writing your dissertation immediately. Yeah, on a quicker track. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm still not quite sure. But it feels like in the US that length of your PhD is kind of gone down significantly in the last few years.
Yeah, and I think that's probably hopefully for everyone's good. And on that note, I think we are going to end this segment right here. This is episode 101. We're talking with Dr. Angela Perri, so enjoy these ads. Welcome back to episode 101 of A Life in Ruins podcast. We're talking with Dr. Angela Perri, and we wanted to start this segment off by just kind of chatting about your dissertation work. So could you give us maybe the elevator speech of what you ended up studying as part of your dissertation?
Yes. I studied, I always tell my students, have your elevator speech ready, and here's me failing miserably. What I did was I looked at a comparison of 3 areas across the world: Japan, Northern Europe, and the Mid-South of the US. And I looked at whether people use dogs as hunting adaptations to climate change related to the Pleistocene-Holocene transition. So essentially, I noticed that there are lots of dog burials that all looked exactly the same. And the burials looked very kind of hunting dog-like. They were buried with hunting stuff, and they're with people who were in very similar environments, kind of these deciduous broadleaf forests that kind of arose with the Holocene transition, and people who are hunting largely white-tailed deer and boar in these forests, and had transitioned very rapidly through that climatic change from either polar tundra or boreal forests into these kind of rapidly expanding warm forests with these completely different prey species. And essentially it looked like that they were using dogs as a way to adapt to new environments and new prey. And that once these hunting dogs died, that they were burying them in these very elaborate ways. And that the same thing was happening kind of across the board in these 3 areas, looked very, very similar. And in all areas, it stopped once agriculture came in. So it looked very similar and very closely associated with hunter-gatherers.
That's freaking cool. Did
Have I published that paper yet? No.
I don't think
this is what happens when you do a PhD. Like, you're so tired of the topic that it's a decade later and you just can't bring yourself to publish that PhD.
Yeah. Last I told Bob about my my thesis, I told him it was in review, but I had never submitted it. But he just kept asking me. We'll get there.
It's internal review. That's what it is.
There you go.
Yeah. It's coming.
So the research you did there, it was like some ethnographic stuff in Japan, or was it more like looking at data and then analyzing it?
Yeah, so I spent a large portion of time in Japan during that. I mean, a very good excuse to just go spend a bunch of time in Japan. And one of the things I wanted to do while I was there is, people who hunt boar tell me, there's nothing like hunting boar. It's a very unique experience, and you have to do it. You have to understand how people are using dogs in the field. And I've done it with hunters in the Mid-South, so in Alabama and various places in the Mid-South. And I've done it with hunters in Sweden and other places, mostly deer, though. And so when I went to Japan, I went out with some hunters. Hunting in Japan is very difficult now. It's a very expensive sport because gun licenses and all of that is a long process. So it's definitely not hunting the way a Jamon hunter-gatherer would hunt, right? But we definitely went out and went boar hunting, and it was like a freight train that you can't see coming at you through a dense forest. It was intense, and you immediately see why people use dogs. You can't find the boar alone in a forest without them. The dogs sniff them out immediately. And as soon as they get their trail, they go running after them and essentially corral them, and then just bark and bark and bark and bark and bark until you find them. And then you kill the boar. I mean, when you go hunting with dogs, you realize why people use dogs to hunt. Because hunting without dogs is a lot harder in those types of environments. So, yeah, I did work with people in Japan. And when I was in the Mid-South, I mean, I just love talking to hunters there because, when I talk to people who don't use dogs, and dogs are largely banned now from hunting all across the U.S. and most states, what they'll say to you is it's not really a sport if you use a dog. It's too easy. But that's the point, right? For hunter-gatherers, that's the point, is that it's not a sport for hunter-gatherer. It's not something that you want to be challenging. It's something that you want to be efficient and as easy and quick as possible. So, yeah, dogs work.
That's awesome. Well, and I think we talk about this in the episode we recorded yesterday, which is actually going to release after this, but the experiential knowledge you get from actually going out and doing stuff archaeology wise is really, you might not be able to quantify it or qualitatively. I mean, you could write about it or whatnot, but it's hard to kind of put that into words or publish on it or something like that. But it's super important to actually get into those environments and try to replicate it as much as possible,
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that aside from this kind of general idea of dog hunting, one of the things I found really surprising was that, we think of prey selection, right? Human prey selection and the animals that we go after. But when you use a dog, you don't really have any control. There's no control in prey selection. The dog picks what it's going to go after, and then that's what you go and kill. And so when I think through, funnel records of places where people are using dogs, and I think here's our prey choice selection. Oh, here they went after these animals, or they went after this age or this group. Then I'm just thinking when you hunt with dogs, that's not the way it works. The dogs choose what you go after. You're not no, not that one. So yeah, I mean, you have to be there to really understand these types of very, what seem like kind of minute decisions that happen when you're hunting that actually turn into these really important kind of things when you go through the archaeological record.
So I guess two questions. One, in how much magnitude does hunting with a dog optimize your return rate for these cultures?
Yeah. So my colleague, Jeremy Koster, he works in Nicaragua. He does some really amazing work now with mosquito and Mayanga people in Nicaragua. Yep. She's excited about that. With mosquito and Mayanga people in Nicaragua who use hunting dogs. They're horticulturalists, but most of their game comes from wild hunting. And he does a lot of work looking at kind of optimal foraging theory. And relating it to looking at these dogs, it has a lot to do with the environment that you're in, the prey species that you're in, and how much work you need to put into cost benefit analyses, right? How much work you need to put into getting good dogs. So in places where he works, right, people still use dogs and they're really important for hunting specific prey species. Some of them, they're horrible at hunting, right? So a very limited prey spectrum that they're good at. But he's in an environment where dogs go very quickly. He'll tell you every time he comes back to his site, most of the dogs he saw last time are gone because of disease, because of jaguars and snakes, and it's not a very friendly environment for dogs. Whereas, you know, other locations like these deciduous forest dogs, you know, we have dogs in burials that are clearly like 10, 12 years old that are hunting dogs. So you have dogs that are seemingly living much longer lives than they are in places like the neotropics. Yeah, it depends on how much work you have to put into it. If you read the ethnographic literature, most places where people use dogs and use them kind of religiously, they will say like, we couldn't do what we do without the dogs. Like the dogs are our primary technology. And they are kind of what everything in our economy centers around. Like we really want this nice juicy pig species, but we don't even attempt to hunt that without dogs because the dogs go out and find it for us. They hold it down so we can kill it. Without dogs, it's really difficult. And you hear that over and over for lots and lots of different species. And yeah, it varies by environment, but that's kind of when people use dogs, they really maximize what they're getting out of the environment from them. But Jeremy will tell you as well, like you hope that your dog doesn't go after some creature that like it can never catch. And then you just wasted like 3 hours and you're just like, God damn it, this sucks. Yeah.
So they just chase it. Yeah.
Right. So it's like dogs are ideal in a location where basically every prey species is a prey species that is good at being hunted with dogs.
That's so cool. Yeah. Please take me in your suitcase next time you do something like that.
Yeah. You want to go to Nicaragua?
If there's jaguars, it'll be kind of fun. So I guess the other question was like, you went to Japan to do some of this and you went to like the southeastern United States, and like was the, not to joke about it, like the cultural experience like kind of equal in the sense of like how like differing it was, or was it like really fun doing both?
Hunters are hunters all around the world, and my experience so far has been that they are very similar, kind of worldwide. First of all, everyone is like, what is this like girl doing following us around, watching us hunt with dogs? Why is she asking us weird questions? Like, why is she asking us things that are seemingly obvious? So yeah, they're always lots of fun. They're always really happy to show you what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're always largely maligned groups of people who are getting a lot of crap about A, hunting, and B, hunting with dogs. And so that's been an interesting world for me to slightly step into. When you're a person who studies hunting dogs, you're a little bit like of a target for certain groups of people who are like, hunting dogs are something. So yeah, it's an interesting world to like be part of. In the US, it's really dwindling. There's so few states where you can hunt with dogs now. And not that I necessarily like agree with hunting with dogs here, but it is kind of a traditional thing to do for a lot of the people that I was working with. So yeah, it's interesting to see moving from the kind of prehistoric side of it to people who are still hunting with dogs.
So this might be a dumb question. So, but hear me out. How do you? So you have your ethnographic record. Your field working with these groups. How do you see and study dogs in the past and connect these modern kind of ethnographic accounts to kind of prehistory?
Yeah, it's difficult. Let me tell you that identifying hunting dogs in the archaeological record is not like. It's not easy. Now, sometimes I have work. So I've done a paper recently, maybe in the last 2 years, on rock art. So hunting dogs in rock art in Saudi Arabia, which was awesome because it was a panel of people hunting with dogs and bows and arrows and leashes. So we were pretty clear that they were using dogs for hunting there, right? So this is our dream. We would love to just have a bunch of rock art. In Japan, we have some kind of artistic depictions as well of people hunting boar. with hunting dogs. So, okay, there it's pretty clear, right? But how you identify a hunting dog is largely through context, through pathology on dogs, through the things that they're buried with and the way in which they're buried. Like I said, with my PhD, we saw dog burials begin with this kind of transition, and we saw them end with the arrival of agriculture, which was at different times in all three of these areas. And then you suddenly see dogs being treated like pariahs or eaten or something else. So you no longer see these kind of elaborate burials, and these burials are mirroring the burials of what you would think of as male hunter burials as well. So you see like a lot of evidence of dogs being treated in a very specific way. So there's lots of like other weird little things that you may find at sites, such as intentional shelters or things being created for dogs. There's lots of really great ethnographic literature about how people treat their hunting dogs and creating sleeping platforms for them, or building them special snow shelters if it's in Arctic environments, or sunshades if it's in quite warm environments, or things like that. So these are some of the more detailed things that are harder to get at, but I think are really interesting.
Yeah, that is the kind of stuff that like kind of keeps me up at night. Like, how did they do it? Like what, like, I don't know. There's just so many answers or questions you could ask about it.
Yeah.
And like Todd had asked me at one point, like, what's the number one thing you want to find? And I was like, okay, like just a mammoth and like a human and a dog, preferably like the mammoth has gored both of them. So like, you know, they were hunting.
Yes.
And it's just not going to be found, but we would know a lot if we did.
I know. This rock art stuff was like, I'd never even considered it. And then a colleague of mine came to me and said, we found something weird in Saudi Arabia. Do you want to take a look? And I was just like, oh my God. Do you know what you found here? This is insane. This is amazing. It's literally groups of dogs on leashes dating to 9,000 years ago with bows and arrows chasing down prey. What? This is like the gold mine. She was like, oh, is it good? I was like, it's great. Yeah.
It's like a friggin' time machine. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was so amazing.
Rosetta Stone for dogs.
Exactly. And like early evidence of leashes and like what the dogs looked like, and their like kind of phenotypic characteristics and the way that they're using them in different environments. It was just like, yeah, I mean, that's the dream. Like, it'll never come along again, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Those dogs had like curled like tails. I remember seeing that in the the panel, which is like not wolfy.
It was really interesting because they look so similar to something that is now the kind of Israeli national dog, the Canaan dog, which interestingly looks like all other kind of primitive dogs that we think of, right? It's very dingo looking, or this mid-size yellowish dog that is what a pariah dog often is considered, like pricked ears, curled tail, kind of a barreled chest, medium-sized tan. And the depictions of dogs on these panels all looked exactly the same. They all looked very uniform. They even had, so Canaan dogs often have a white chest and have a little white tick on their shoulder. And the dogs in these panels all had like white, some kind of depiction of a chest, like a chest piece of a different color or a different shade or something. I mean, it's rock art, so you can't see, but has a chest, some kind of depiction on the chest. And a lot of them have like something depicted on their shoulder that looks very similar to this like tick, this white kind of line that we see on the Canaan dog. I mean, it was just crazy. So like I said, a once in a lifetime, like never again will you see that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Cause I was just painting that the other day, like trying to like make a replica of it. And I was wondering what that little line was. I thought it was like separating their legs, but if that's like supposed to be coloring, that's really cool. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah. I think it's depicting like a kind of a different color on the chest and a line, or the tick. We call it the tick. It's a genetic mutation on their side.
Huh.
Yeah. Look up a Canaan dog. You'll see all of them have this white little mark right there.
I'm going to do that right now because we're going to end this session. And in the next one, we'll talk more about your research. Welcome back to episode 101 of a Life in Ruins podcast. I can never remember. We're here with Dr. Angela Perri. And in the interim, we were nerding out about rock art still. And she mentioned that she worked at the Max Planck, is how apparently it's supposed to be said. But like Costco's, there are multiple. Is that right? Yeah.
I'll just be American and say Max Planck. And Yeah, Max Planck is really an interesting kind of system within Germany. So there are, I think, something like 71 Max Planck Institutes all around Germany. Oh. And every Max Planck Institute focuses on a different kind of theme. And then within that theme, there are various departments. So our Max Planck was the Max Planck for evolutionary anthropology. And then within that, when I started, we had a kind of linguistics department, and we had a genetics department, and then we had a psychology department and the human evolution department, which is what I was in. And then eventually the linguistic department closed, and we got an HBE department that replaced it. So we're all generally tied together with some kind of theme, and then do our kind of separate things within our department. And there was another Max Planck that was, what are they called in Jena, not too far from us, the science of human history or something like that. That's very closely related. They do genetics and archaeology as well. So they opened not that long ago. And we have a kind of close relationship between the two departments, or the two kind of Max Planck Institutes.
Cool. Are those really well funded? I feel like I always hear that's like the gold standard. That's where you want to go if you want to do some research, especially any genetics research it seems like it all comes out of that.
So like I said, okay, there's many, right? And they have various themes: biology, computational genetics, engineering, like they're just kind of everything. And they are incredibly well funded, partially private funding, and then partially like German taxpayer money goes towards a Max Planck Institute. So, and I from my experience, German people are really proud of the work that's done at the Max Planck Institutes and how kind of prestigious they are. Max Planck is such a unique opportunity to do research on your own terms, to have tons of funding, and to have essentially a free reign of where your research goes. So that has its pros and cons, right? So you have to be incredibly self-disciplined and incredibly in control of your own research and driving your own boat, because you have so much independence at a Max Planck Institute that can sink you if you don't kind of utilize that to your maximum advantage. So yeah, but I mean, what an incredibly unique experience that, I will never experience again, the freedom and financial support that I got being in a Max Planck Institute for 4 years. Yeah.
Were you the person to bring dogs as a research topic to there, or was Gregor there first, or how did that come about?
So the way that I got involved with Gregor and genetics in general. So when I was a PhD student at Durham, Gregor was at Durham. He was there as part of a RCUK fellowship, so a 5-year fellowship at Durham. I didn't know Gregor at all. I had no work with him or interaction with him at all. And one day I was walking down the hallway and he was like, "Hey, are you the girl that does dogs?" At that time, Gregor was deep into pigs and pig domestication and all things pigs. And I was like, yeah, I work on dogs. And he was like, "I'm interested in starting to work on dogs." And so we had a long conversation about it, which eventually became a PNAS paper in 2012 about dogs and a combination of archaeology and genetics to look at dogs, and then kind of kicked off our long relationship that we have now, pairing archaeology and genetics, which I think has been incredibly successful. I think in my experience, a lot of archaeologists are weird about genetics and think that geneticists don't know a lot about archaeology or care, which is true in some cases. And so I think that Gregor and I have been able to strike a really nice balance in putting both the archaeology and the genetics at the forefront and not letting one lead. Because when that's the case, right, it's always the genetics that become the star of the show, and the archaeology gets pushed to a supplemental where it's also we excavated this site, period. And, so the archaeology never gets to be the star of the show. In our kind of collaboration, I was very insistent that the archaeology needs to be just as important as the genetics. And he has really embraced that. And he has an archaeology background as well. So yeah, we've managed to really do a lot of great collaboration in that way. And, a lot of my colleagues are like, "Well, how did you manage to be first author on a largely genetics based paper? That's so weird." And it's because I don't let the genetics take center stage, right? The archaeology is just as important. And my colleagues understand that and believe that as well. Yeah. And so Gregor's moved on to Oxford now. He's been at Oxford for a while now. And so then I'm associated with that really long name that is difficult to pronounce at Oxford.
Very cool. What aspects of genetics are you studying as part of this?
So when I first met Gregor, I wasn't really into domestication necessarily. I was very much into just how dogs were used as tools, technology. And Gregor was like, oh, I'm really interested in domestication. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. I'll give it a go and like get in there with you. And so since then, our goal has been the goal of everyone who studies dogs, which is like how, when, where, why. The answers which we do not have the answer to any of those things. But yeah, I mean, that's been our goal, right? Our real like desire would be track down the stock population, which gave rise to dogs, right? And I think with our recent paper in PNAS, we made a pretty good attempt at doing that. It's saying where and when we think dogs were likely domesticated. I'm convinced that dogs were domesticated in Siberia or Beringia and are very closely associated with the peopling of the Americas and ancestral Native American populations, most likely domesticated wolves and then came with them into the Americas. So I'm convinced that that's the story. I find it hard to understand genetically, timing wise, morphologically, how we would get to any other story with domestication of dogs, largely because, I mean, bear with me a minute, but we know we have dogs going into the Americas very early. And we know that we have populations who are essentially isolated in Beringia for some period of time during the standstill. And we know that we have none or very little gene flow from human populations into Beringia at this time. After a certain time, it seems to be seemingly kind of cut off after about 24,000 years ago. So how do you get dogs into the Americas by potentially 15,000 years ago or earlier? Like, who is giving people in Beringia who are eventually peopling the Americas dogs? And when? Is it pre-24,000? We don't have any evidence of dogs being domesticated before that time period. Everything we have prior to that time period, all evidence points to those being wolves. So I'm trying to figure out who got dogs to these people when they're peopling the Americas, early dogs into the Americas. And I can't find an answer outside of them being domesticated in Siberia or Beringia. So that's kind of where we're going with the genetics, is trying to sort this question of when and where and how and why.
That is one of the coolest topics ever. Yeah, that's really cool stuff. From that population there, then, how quickly, I guess I'll preface this, like when the paper came out, you mentioned like dogs are used as trade items, and I never thought about that because you're like trading food and stone. You're like, my dog actually is really fast. Let's switch, you know. How quick did they like populate Europe and Africa and I guess South Asia?
So one of our issues in dog domestication has always been, so anyone who knows the history of dog domestication has seen, like, we debate back and forth about dogs were domesticated in East Asia, dogs were domesticated in Europe. No, they're domesticated in Central Asia. No, they're domesticated here. And we can't actually we can't actually figure out, why can't we sort that out? That seems weird that we can't pinpoint literally anywhere in Eurasia that we think dogs are from. And I think it's because dogs were domesticated in Siberia and then went both ways. I think they went into the Americas and went back into the rest of Eurasia. And that what happened is, along the way, they picked up DNA from local wolf populations, from European wolf populations, from East Asian wolf populations, from Central Asian wolf populations. And that makes us think that we have either dual domestication in various places, or no, they're domesticated here, no, they're domesticated here. Well, how can you be right and I be right? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I think we got this one source population and it's funneling very quickly back into the rest of Eurasia. And that's what's making us think that dogs were domesticated in all of these places. So I don't remember what your actual question was, but that's the
neither do
that's
I.
Where I went with that.
Oh, it was like, yeah, how'd they get to the rest of the world faster? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how. I think that, right, dogs and trade. Dogs, I very much think of dogs as members of our group, but also technology. I'm very much like the dogs are technology person, right? And I think that dogs can both be members of our group and technology. people move around, right? And so dogs move around too. And all ethnographic evidence suggests that good hunting dogs or good sledding dogs or any dog that's good at things is passed on. Its puppies are passed on, that it becomes an important trade item. And I think that dogs are the same, or, two groups come together and their dogs mate, and then that female dog runs off with that group, and then they give birth to a dog that has completely weird genetics because it's half something else, right? And I think that dogs are happy to breed with all sorts of things, including coyotes and wolves and all various types of things. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if dogs are just mating with each other every time they come into contact, and that those puppies are being traded back and forth and right and left.
That's really, really interesting. I think I know David gets really excited talking about dogs and Clovis, and I think that's like
a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what you would study if you went back and got a PhD, right?
Yeah, where are the Clovis dogs?
Yeah, that would be, if I found that, I would just pass out and be done. I'd be like, all right, this is it.
Where are they?
I want to go out to La Prairie this year. I told Todd and Maddie, like, if they find a dog,
it's over.
Look at many things.
It's over.
I was like, I will be there that day. Yeah. So,
yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard more about that site right now, but there's like a whole house there and stuff. And like,
no, I saw that they were back out there, but I didn't know what the most recent finds were.
Channel flakes and like their process and everything. Yeah.
Refitting channel flakes, so like broken different parts of the site. So they're really actually finding a ton of artifacts now, because before it was like you're digging through like calcium carbonate and just everything sucks and you're not finding anything. Yeah, but now they've actually found like a lot. They're getting a lot of tools. They're getting a lot of bone. It's kind of wild. It's like the exact opposite of what they've had for every field season before that.
Sounds awesome. Let's get the dog. And then we'll just like seal it up. That'll just be the bow.
It's in that one quad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some undergrad just like hits it with a trowel. Yeah. So for the audience, I guess we get a lot of people that do CRM, a lot of people that are in grad school and aspiring undergrads. What is it like being on such big papers, and like, how do you even go about that? Or just papers in general as a PhD student?
Yeah, how do you go about being on papers as PhD students? I think that that's down to having good supervisors who help you get on papers, help you write your own papers, include you in their research, and make you an important part of the publication process. I think that genuinely for the job market these days, like not having publications is not helpful. It's not, you're not going to go very far in the job market without publications. And I think that at a lot of places now, it used to be that people would come out of their PhDs with no papers, or maybe like one paper, right? And I don't think that that's the norm anymore. I think that supervisors are realizing that to be competitive on the job market now, that you need to have papers. So yeah, I think that being an active, integrative part of your own research, of the people in your department's research, of your supervisor's research is really the way to go. But you also have to be your own advocate, right? A lot of students may wait around for like someone to give them the opportunity to be on a paper or to write their own papers. But yeah, you have to kind of take it into your own hands sometimes as well. If you have an idea, you have the time and the ability to write it, and you have the support of your supervisor, then yeah, I say go for it.
Cool. Why are there so many names on these genetics papers?
Why are there so many names on the genetics papers? There's so many names on our genetics papers because we are very much, when I say we, I mean Gregor and I and Laurent and our kind of primary collaborators. We feel like if someone put effort into the work of this paper, whether it was, in the lab or in the field or in the writing of the paper or in the data analysis, anyone who touched the data and made a difference, for me, I'm like a more is more person. And so if people want to be on a paper that they feel they genuinely contributed to, even if it was only in a minor way, I'm happy to add them to the paper. Now, sometimes, that leads to 50, 60, 70 authors on a paper. But you also have, these genetic labs have, a person who's in charge, and then multiple PhD students and multiple postdocs and, lab people who all were important to the process of getting us to these results. So the direwolf paper that I just published, we had, 53 people on or something like that. But a lot of those are postdocs or PhD students or lab people who were integral in doing the lab work or the analysis. And it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and effort. And I want those people to be genuinely like rewarded for their contribution. So I'm like, get on over here on this paper. And I love it. I mean, I love the idea of a PhD student having like a science or nature paper. That's, good for them. They contributed. So yeah, the more the merrier.
On that note, we're going to do a fourth segment, which is the more the merrier. So we'll be right back. That wasn't great. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to episode 101 of a Life in Ruins podcast. We are here with Dr. Angela Perri, and we wanted to start off this segment by asking you about what you are doing currently archaeologically.
So, I'll just start this off by saying, like, I'm a huge advocate for mental health in academia, which is a large problem we have, right? We are led to believe that academia is a monk-like existence to which we shall devote all our time and energy and mental well-being to. And I lived that life for a super long time, and it only led to like a lot of like let down and a lot of stress. And, so I was right before the pandemic hit, I had a baby and I was on maternity leave, and then the pandemic hit. And yeah, I was living very, very far away from my family and my friends and most of the people I knew who I wanted to be around when I had a baby, and I was locked in the UK. We were really locked in. So we weren't allowed to go anywhere. I wasn't allowed to have like meetings with other people who had babies or any of that stuff. And on top of being on maternity leave in academia during a pandemic, like it just really took a massive toll on my mental health. And I just found myself, like a lot of people I know, like just being like, I want my mommy, like I want my family. I want people I know. I want a place I'm familiar with. And so I decided I wanted to go home. I was ready to like leave Europe. I'd been there for 12 years and it was time to go home. And at that time I got the opportunity to work for the company that I work for now, Paleo West, in Las Vegas, where I'm from. And I just thought it was like it was a leap because I'd been in academia since, my PhD. And I didn't know if I wanted to go into CRM or what that meant or how that would change my research trajectory or my academic trajectory. Did that mean I wasn't academic anymore? All these things. So I came back and I started working for Paleo West CRM, and I'm now the head of the Nevada office here. And basically I run all of our cultural resource work here. So, Nevada is largely BLM. So I do a lot of work with BLM, a lot of work with mining, a lot of work with Park Service and National Forest Service and things like that. And I get to see a different side of archaeology than I was doing in academia. And, I used to think that CRM and academia, like the two shall never meet, that you can't be someone in CRM and in academia. And that's just not true. Probably since I've been in CRM, I've met more academics in CRM, people who are still publishing amazing papers and doing amazing research. And yeah, that world is still really possible. It's just a different side of archaeology. And I have to say, so I work in Nevada, I get to see a lot of amazing Great Basin research, right? A lot of Paleo-Indian and archaic stuff, way more Paleo-Indian and archaic stuff than I would have ever seen in academia. We're excavating archaic sites every single day. And that stuff essentially goes into gray literature most of the time and like disappears unless someone does something with it, which is really my goal with CRM, is to take these like kind of gray literature reports that go off to a client or to BLM and actually put them into some kind of context so that people can see all the amazing things that we're finding in CRM. So yeah, the two can coexist in some kind of positive way if you want it to happen. And I know lots of people now that I'm in CRM who have left academia because they can't handle the mental toll it takes, the expectations that are put onto you when you're in academia, things like that. So there's a lot of people who think they'll never leave academia, and I see a lot of them in CRM now. So the pandemic has really changed a lot, I think, for many academics in rethinking mental health and rethinking what they want to do with their lives. So, yeah.
Do you find it very difficult to work in a normal like 8 to 5 job and then also write papers on the side? Or is that myself? I don't publish or anything like that. I don't do a ton of research, but if I was going to do it, I think it would be difficult after working all day to then take that extra time and be like, I need to work on this paper or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard, but let me tell you, in academia, when you're teaching, it's also, you have an 8 to 5 job. I mean, when I'm teaching, my job is to teach classes and meet with students and prepare materials. And like the amount of time that you often have within academia to actually just sit down and write papers. I mean, this is something I got to do when I worked at Max Planck, and it was just like my time was my own and I did what I wanted and had a purely research-based job, right? But within academia, within the university system, we don't have like a bunch of free time to be writing papers. So you have to pick and choose your time. And, a lot of people are writing papers on weekends and the evenings after their kids go to bed on holiday. That's when a lot of papers are getting written. So it's not too different from that. The trade-off is in academia, often your life and your work never shuts off, right? It's just an open flow. You're answering emails at 10 o'clock at night and like constantly doing stuff related to academia. Whereas in CRM, largely my job is 9 to 5. And then I don't worry too much about what's going on in CRM on the weekends or at night. So yeah, you got to pick your battles, right? So maybe there's trades, pluses and minuses on each side. But yeah, this time in my life, I'm really loving the kind of freedom mentally and within my life that CRM offers. And you can still be in research. Yeah, still do what you like. I'm still publishing papers and still part of my research groups and collaborations and all of that.
I think it was like early 20, during the, right at the start of the pandemic, you and I had that live on Instagram. And I think we chatted for 4 hours just on Zoom or whatever. But yeah, at the, mental health wise, I was I think I want to get my PhD still. I don't know, but I really like my job. And everyone was like, if you really want to do it, just go do it. But I had this conversation with you and you were like, if you like your job, stay there. And the rest of the world was on fire. And I was like, that was really good advice.
Yeah. I struggle because I think a lot of academia is geared towards, you can't help it. Part of our job when you're at a university, and I'm a visiting assistant professor at UNLV. What does that mean? It means I teach classes, 1 class a term. Gotcha. Yeah. And so I'm not tenured. I'm not part of the permanent faculty. I teach classes here and there. And so part of your job as, a faculty member is to encourage students to go into the grad program, right? And that's part of the university system, is that we need grad students. That's how our departments thrive. But the trade-off to that is also that not everyone should go to grad school. Grad school is expensive, both money and mental and time-wise. It's a lot of work and you have to really love it and really want it and also understand the job market that you're walking into. If you think you're going to start grad school and you're guaranteed a professorship and you're going to go off and work at your dream school and be, a lecturer, assistant professor, something that's unlikely to happen given the statistics of how many jobs we have and how many people are coming out of PhD. And no one wants to say that, and it's uncomfortable. And I know that grad students hate hearing that when I tell them. It's lost me, I think, a number of jobs because I can't help but be honest about the life that we're walking into as people who are in grad school. And I encourage people who really want that life and who are willing to go through the hurdles that it is probably going to entail and have the lifestyle that can make that successful and are really encouraged to go into academia later. But also I have lots of great students who are doing their masters or who do a PhD and end up in CRM. And that's where they want to be. And that's where they choose to end up. And CRM is a viable, realistic option, right? most of my friends who are in CRM or working for the BLM or the Forest Service or the Park Service are making more money, have more freedom, more time, more enjoyment than my colleagues who are in academia. And I think that this idea that we often get in academia, which is like CRM is where archaeologists go when they can't hack it in academia, is like very unhealthy and not true at all. Like everyone I know in CRM are amazing researchers in their own right, are like know the area that they work in like the back of their hand, like could write a lot of people in academia under the table. Like I said, are making way more money than most of my friends in academia, are much happier and in like better mental spaces than my friends in academia. So yeah, I feel lucky to have a foot in like both worlds and to see clearly the pluses and minuses of both worlds. And if anything, one of my roles I hope in the future is to like encourage students, if they want to go on to like a master's or something like that, that like, yeah, CRM is a totally viable option and like a great option, and it's not the default.
That was really well said, by the way.
There's my spiel. I've gone on my long spiel. Yeah.
No. When did we live together, Connor? 2015, 2016?
Yeah.
So we were in our master's second year of it, and there's just a bit me and Connor just both holding pillows and just screaming into the pillows about like, what was it, stats or something? I don't remember. But yeah, it's just like there's times like even in your master's like where you're just like, this is so much to deal with, and like everyone's like, oh, like that person's going to get funding, or like I'm not going to find a job after this, and like then you're also like, I'm poor, so yeah, I appreciate you being honest about it.
It's hard financially and mentally and emotionally. You know, I've watched so many of my friends go like through mental, emotional ups and downs through their PhD, and the toll it can take on your family and your friends and your personal life and your mental health and all of that is difficult. Yeah. Also in the master's, it's really difficult, and it's not for everyone. And if it's not for you, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It more means there's probably something wrong with the system in academia. So yeah. And I just don't think, not everyone needs to go to grad school. So when people like you are like, oh, should I do my PhD? I'm like, really think about it. Like you got to really want that life, and you have to really want the debt, mental debt, financial debt, whatever it is that goes along with sinking that much time and energy into a PhD. It's a lot of work, and you have to have I probably said this to you, like a real path, a real idea of where you want to go after the PhD. And it can't just be like, well, I'm going to get an assistant professorship, because that can't be the one and only plan. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I know lots of people with PhDs who are super successful in the CRM system or the government system or things like that. So that can also be your plan.
I think the most, like, I guess not hard hitting, but like thing I remember the most about what you told me was like, if you think about it practically, you have to go take a job wherever you can get it. And like, if you want to study Southeastern archaeology, you want to live in Nashville, you want to live in, Seattle, wherever you want, you're rarely going to get a job in that spot. So like, you're going to end up in, Kansas, and like, you have to want to live there, or you're going to hate it. And I was like, oh man, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, think about the people that you know who have academic jobs. Like, were they from that university, or did they have close connections to people at that university, or did they work with people at that university? Or, I mean, that's the way it works. Let's take it from me. Don't go and do your PhD in the UK if you think you want to come back to the US, right? Because people are like, you're a European archaeologist. Like, we're not going to hire you in Arizona or Tennessee, or, do you do local archaeology? Is that part of like your repertoire? So it usually ends up that people work and get a job, if they do get a job, at places that they have been working with those people in the local archaeology and have a really deep history with that work. And rightly so. But that's why I told you, if you want to end up in the South, you better go to the South somewhere for your PhD. Or if you want to end up in, the Intermountain West, then you better go to Reno or something like that for your PhD, because that's your best chance of getting a job in that area.
Yeah.
Well, I sufficiently crushed the any dreams? But also, if you want to do a PhD, go and do a PhD.
As a person who is currently contemplating what the next step of my life is, I needed to hear that. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not to like disparage a PhD, right? Or people who are doing their PhDs or masters right now, because those people have chosen that path and like have an idea usually of what they want to do. And I did it, and lots of people I know did it. So yeah, you just have to decide what's right for you.
Yeah. And like, we only got a few minutes left now. So if you had, I mean, I guess you've said it now, but like, anything research wise or, life wise or just, archaeology wise, you would like to tell the world, or like, something about dogs, something about, just be you.
I feel like I've really been me. I feel like I really put it out there. Some people are going to listen to this and be like, what the? Yeah.
We could just leave it at that if you want. Yeah. But.
Yeah. I feel like if anyone takes anything from this, I hope they take kind of the real, like, side of archaeology that people don't really talk about all the time. The mental health struggles, the challenges of the whole thing of grad school, of collaborations, of doing this thing that we call archaeology and putting it out there into the world. Yeah, it's not, we often get, I'm sure all you guys get it as well, like, oh, you're an archaeologist. It's like Indiana Jones every day. You're on treasure hunts and, it must just be fun. Are you finding gold? Or are you finding dinosaurs? Is it awesome? Yeah. And like, there's a lot of challenges to what we do. No matter what path you take, there's challenges to it. And so, yeah, I hope people who are listening who aren't archaeologists are thinking like, wow, actually, it's like the same struggle I have working like a 9-to-5 job in an office or, working at Pizza Hut or whatever. We got struggles in archaeology too. We're not just living it up with our bullwhip.
Yeah. In 1 second or so, what would be your like opinion on like dogs relative to humanity? If you want to answer that. Oh, I've always wanted to ask you.
Oh, I just love this quote that's like, be the person your dog thinks you are. That's just what I live by. Your dog just thinks you're the best person in the world. And most of us aren't. We're mostly just like not. And so I just try to like be the person my dog thinks I am every day. When your dog just looks at you like, oh my God, I love you so much. You're so perfect. You're just like, I need to live up to my dog's standards,
That's a really good point.
Awesome. Before we end the show, do you have a couple sources that you would recommend for anyone interested in dog domestication or not getting into academia or whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think YouTube has so many good ones. I love Ed Yong from The Atlantic does like a lot of great stories on our research, and The Atlantic has a lot of great little clips on YouTube about dog domestication based on our stories. There's also a new book out by Jennifer Raff, University of Kansas, called The Origins, like the genetic history of the Americas. I'm not plugging that because it talks about our dog research, but yeah, it's a good book to talk about kind of origins in the Americas. Another collaborator of mine, Clive Wynn, has a book out called Dog is Love, and he's a canine cognition specialist who works a lot with us on archaeology and genetics. And, it doesn't all have to be like serious academic stuff. Like I love all of the like, why does your dog love you books? And, everything related to like dog cognition and all of that. A Dog's History of the World is another like really good book about kind of the history of the world through the eyes of dogs, like how they were transported by us all around the world and stuff like that. And like, I have to say, like, go back to the original, like White Fang and Call of the Wild, like just go back to some like good Jack London, get yourself like deep into that dog narrative. Yeah.
Awesome. And where can our listeners like find you, either on social media? I think yours is private, but like, or
you can't find me. You can't find me. There's no finding me. I'm like so sadly not integrated into a lot of that stuff. I have a Twitter account. I never post on it. So you can't find me. You can't find me.
ResearchGate or like a academia?
I have a ResearchGate and academia.edu. Yeah, you can find me there.
Cool.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And because this is a Life in Ruins podcast, we have to ask you a very, very important question. So if you were given the chance again, would you still choose to live a life in ruins?
Yes, of course. What else would I do?
Awesome. We just interviewed Dr. Angela Perri. You can find her here. We'll put it in the show notes. And guys, please be sure to rate and review the podcast, provide feedback, whatever that, every episode I yell at you guys to do this. Just do it. This was a great episode. I think, just head on over, be like, this was a great episode. Hit the, the star button. All you got to do.
Thanks for listening to a Life in Ruins podcast.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Life in Ruins Podcast, and you can also email us at alifeinruinspodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, make sure to bring your archaeologists in from the cold and feed them beer. Did you hear about the candle that quit his job?
I didn't.
He burned out.
Oh, it sounds familiar.
All right.
Love it. That's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we're out.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is 10 years old this year. Our executive producer is Ashley Perri, our social media coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht, and our chief editor is Rachel Roden. The Archaeology Podcast Network was co-founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in 2014 and is part of Cultura Media and DigTech LLC.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.